This video is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence and run your business. Although it would make for great content carving a tiny pumpkin with a knife, I just know I'm going to cut my thumb and bleed out. So instead today we're going to be taking these adorable little pumpkins and we're going to be painting on them with Posca pens as well as cutting out some crafty things. So let's get to decorating. To begin, we're going to start off with a default pumpkin face, and I usually do this with every project where I create multiples. I like to create a sort of my version of what you would think of. So for a jack-o'-lantern or painting a face on a pumpkin, I wanted to do my own sort of default face. A basic little smiley face, but with its tongue sticking out with a few Halloween twists. Now, I know I also said I was going to be painting on pumpkins, but I couldn't resist cutting into them just to add a few felt details. Sure, I could have just glued them on, but I had to go for that extra sort of depth and detail, and a little cutting never hurt anybody, unless you literally hurt yourself cutting into it. Thankfully, I got out of this project, not a scratch on me. So going into our basic default face, I started off with the mouth. I cut a slight smile, sewed a cute little tongue, and stuck it in there. Moving on to the eyes, although I was thinking about doing a regular plain 2-dot eye face, I thought it would be cute to make it just look a little bit spooky. So I made the eyes just a little tired and sickly looking by adding some color and having it fade out. Added some line bags to the eyes just to add that extra sickly looking detail. Of course, we have our pink cheeks, and because it is a very me thing to do, but also it is Halloween, I had to add some blood. And even more appropriately, I thought it would be cute to add 2 bite marks near where a pumpkin's neck would be, just to suggest that maybe this pumpkin has turned into a vampire or is turning into a vampire. And then we splattered some blood on it. Now this blood is very light, it's not a very dark red, but I do think it's very cute. It's a very soft blood look. And there is our first default sort of standard face pumpkin. I think this little guy turned out pretty cute. It was a nice warm-up, but now it is time to move on to something a little bit more creative. On to our fish pumpkin. I know Halloween doesn't exactly scream fish, or a fish doesn't exactly scream Halloween, but when I look at a pumpkin, a nice orange round pumpkin, one of the things that comes to mind is a goldfish, so I thought it would be fun just to be silly and creative and turn one of our tiny pumpkins into a fish. Now, if you've seen my decorating Easter egg video, this is a similar project where I am painting pumpkins instead of eggs and gluing felt bits onto them to create our designs. Now, I created a shark out of an egg before, so this really reminds me of that project. So to begin designing our fish pumpkin, I started off with its fish lips, and going into this design, I was actually thinking about how I was going to look at this pumpkin when it was finished. Sure, pumpkins are 3D and you can rotate them, but usually when you design a pumpkin, you put it down and you set it there for a week and you don't normally rotate it. So I was thinking about the best way to look at this fish, and I thought a 3/4 view was the best. That way you kind of get a little bit of both of the fins, you get the tail, and you can get a better look, I feel like, at the fish. So I wanted to design the fish from a 3/4 view. So originally I was going to design its mouth sort of skewed, as if you were looking at these juicy lips from the side. But when I cut out the shape, I thought it would be a little cuter if I just had it smiling normal. So that's what I ended up going with, but when it came to its eyeball placement, I definitely put its eyes on the side of its head. That's something I've been really embracing in my art. Silly potato faces with eyes on the side of the head. And of course, if I was going to be looking at this pumpkin from a 3/4 view, it also just made a lot more sense to have the eyes on one side. It just adds to the goofiness. I love it. I think it's cute. Wow, I've spent this whole time talking about the side of this fish. I cut out the fins and tails, cut a slit in the pumpkin, and stuck them in. Pretty simple. Now, something I did differently on this guy was, instead of sewing details onto the fins, I actually used use the Posca pens to paint them on because I've never used Posca pens on felt. I was really curious, and honestly I was quite pleasantly surprised at how well they worked. Though I will admit I do like the look of a sewn detail more. But now let's create a creature that's a little bit more Halloween themed. Of course, I had to make a bat pumpkin. Bats are probably the most iconic animal when it comes to Halloween, and I also really wanted to completely paint one of these pumpkins. Covering this pumpkin in black was very satisfying. It looks really cool, and it was also just a lot of fun to cover it with paint. So once it was covered in black, I was ready to start making the accessories. So with a bat, I was very excited with the wings, and the wings were a lot of fun. It's a very simple shape to make, as well as the ears. So I cut those out and I will be revisiting those later. For now, we are painting the face, which I am well aware of how much the face of this bat looks like Ghastly, the Pokemon. I really wanted to go with stylized eyes, and oh boy, I mean, I don't know if it's just because it's black. I wanted to put bags under the eyes, just make it look sort of evil, but also kind of uncomfortable, and you have Ghastly, the Pokemon. Whoops. I added a few hairy details just to maybe suggest that this is a bat and not a ghost Pokemon. Previously, when I painted the eggs, I used Posca pens and I had no issues painting them, and I think it may have to do with the fact that eggs have a rougher surface to them. Pumpkins are definitely a lot more slick. They definitely were flaking off as I handled the pumpkin, so I had to be very careful with it, which was a little unfortunate, but again, pumpkins are something you set somewhere and you don't touch them. So once I got over the decorating issue, it seemed to be doing fine. Now, if you're wondering why I didn't sand the surface before I painted them, well, pumpkins are very juicy. Any sort of puncture through their skin, and there's just a lot of liquid that comes out of them, and painting something that's wet isn't the easiest. So I would have rather dealt with the flaking paint than trying to paint basically a wet surface. And then I was ready to start sticking on the accessories. So we have our wings and our ears. Before I stuck on the wings, I realized that the felt was just a little too floppy and it wasn't able to support itself. So I added some very thin wire to the wings just to make them a little bit more stiffer and even a little bit posable. As you can see, cutting holes into the pumpkin to add our wings and ears meant that the paint was definitely falling apart. But again, a very easy fix. I just painted over the exposed areas and no worries. And that is it for our completed pumpkin bat. I think it turned out really cute. I especially like the wings. And with that, let's move on to our last pumpkin. For our fourth and final pumpkin, I wanted to do a stacked pumpkin creature, and I thought it would be really cute to do this in a sort of snowman manner. But instead of having a small head and a big body, I thought it would be really cute to make a large head and a small body. So with that, we are making a cat. Now, I definitely wanted to make a black cat, but after the struggles I had with painting our black bat and having the paint chip away and fall off, I thought it would be best to just embrace the orange pumpkinness. So I went with a typical orange tabby cat, and it wasn't a bad choice. Cats are orange, it makes sense. And I do think it is really fun to be able to see the material you are working with. It is a pumpkin. Having the raw exposed skin I think is really fun instead of painting over it entirely, so it works. So I started off by cutting out some orange ears and gluing them on top of this cat's head. Why I didn't do the whole cutting slits into the pumpkin and sticking it in, I don't know, I just felt like gluing them on this time. From there I drew on the eyes, which I was feeling very fun and big and expressive apparently, I made the eyes huge, and I do think it's very cute. I guess I was going for this very tiny, I guess maybe kitten look because it had such a big head and small body. The huge eyes are very adorable. I stuck on a tiny little nose, gave it a little mouth, and added some tabby stripes. I also thought it would be really fun to make its eyes very large and big, and I also really wanted to embrace the texture of the brush pen. So I wanted to make sure that the strokes were very strokey in the eyes. I think it was just a very fun painted look. For the whiskers, I used some of the wire I used for the bat wings. I cut out little tiny pieces, stuck holes, and then stuck the wire in. It made absolute perfect whiskers, and I was just really happy that I thought about this. Otherwise, I was probably just going to draw them on. So definitely a cute detail. I also cut out a very simple tail and pinned it on. Nothing super fancy, very simple this craft. And then I made the eyes super shiny, and that is it for our cat pumpkin. A very simple yet effective, cute design. These pumpkins were so much fun to make, and they turned out so cute. I think I'll even display them on my very own website using Squarespace. For real, have you seen my new website? It's pretty awesome. KaseyGolden.com. I even have an upgraded shop. I completely revamped my website a while back, and it was so easy. I didn't even have to use their 24/7 email support, which I'm sure is great. With Squarespace, I can have both my portfolio and my online shop on one beautiful website. We've got automatic image scaling, easy importing. What are you waiting for? Head to squarespace.com/KaseyGolden to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain using code KaseyGolden, and create your very own website, be it a shop or portfolio. Make it with Squarespace. Thank you so much to Squarespace for sponsoring this video, and thank you guys so much for watching. Go out there and decorate some pumpkins, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay golden. Bye.